I am going to go through my book that I wrote about long-term care, or what I call free long-term care, hush-hush tactics, attorneys employed to save millions. And this is one of the most important areas of law, one of the most difficult areas of law, and that is when we have an elderly individual who can't afford long-term care, how do we get government assistance? What are the requirements? And if there are assets that want to be protected by the family, what needs to be done? So if you want to purchase this book, you can just listen to me talk about the book. I'll give some basic highlights of the book. The book is not the most entertaining book in the world. It was never meant to be the most entertaining book in the world because it is a very dry and boring subject. However, if I was to tell anybody, what book could you read to save your family more money than any other book, it's going to probably be this book or a few other books that are out there. Long-term care is the most expensive thing that a family has to go through. So the first part, I broke the book up into 5 different sections. The first section is Medicaid Basics. Like, what are the things that you should be basically considering? The second chapter is the requirements of Medicaid. So how does someone get approved? What are the main requirements that we have to go through? The third is the strategies that we use as attorneys. This is probably the most entertaining part of the book because this is actually showing how money is actually saved. And the last is what is called MERP. It's the Medicaid, sorry, it's not the last. Fourth is Medicaid Estate Recovery Program. What is it? What are they attempting to try to do after someone passes away? How are they trying to get assets out of the family to go to the state that someone lives in? And last is Medicare and VA benefits. There is only one other program that's out there that the government will pay for long-term care, and that is the VA program, which is where we're going to start off in section 1, part 1 of the book. If you go right at the very beginning, it's going to start on page 17. And the first part is, well, what is Medicaid? And so most people think, oh, if something happens to me, Medicare covers me in a long-term care situation. It covers for the max of 90 days. That is it. Medicare isn't long-term care insurance. That's why they tell you should go out and buy long-term care insurance, is because Medicare will not cover you. Medicaid is the program that will cover you, but Medicaid is for people who have no assets. So that becomes something very difficult, as you can see. In order to get on Medicaid, you're going to have to spend all your money and then the government will help you out. Well, that's not quite true. There are certain assets that the law allows you to protect. There are certain ways that you can also protect assets, but you have to kind of know what you're doing. And it's very difficult to understand what you can and what you can't do. You got to be very careful because committing fraud to get Medicaid is a crime. It's a felony. Attorneys have gone to jail for wrongfully giving advice. I don't know if I know people who've stolen money have gone to jail, but I don't know if anybody who's done the advice of an attorney has gone to jail for it. But the biggest consideration is ethical considerations at the very beginning that I go over is, should you impoverish yourself in order to get the government to pay for your care? Because the government is really taxpayers. Well, kind of. We don't really pay for our deficit anymore. So it's borrowed money that the government takes to pay for all the programs. You know, we don't recover enough money. So who's really paying for it? The make-believe money that is printed by the government that our children or grandchildren are supposed to pay back. So a lot of people don't have a problem getting on Medicaid because they feel like they have paid into the system their whole life and should be getting something back for it. But that's not everybody. There's some people that say, no, you shouldn't. You should spend all of your money, and then when you're completely impoverished, the government can then help those people out. You get to decide. That's not my job, is to be the moral decider here. My job is to take what my clients say and then try to help them the best I can. Biggest mistakes that I see is people don't understand when you run out of money, you run out of money. Government doesn't care. And they will only give you $60 a month. And so if you want a cell phone and you're in a nursing home, if you don't do any type of planning, you're not going to have any money to have that. Then I get into nursing homes. Be careful of what you're signing, because if you're a child and you're signing a document, you might get in trouble. Medicaid requirements. So there are the major requirements to understand is basically three. We have our basic requirements like over 65. Of course, people under 65 have different Medicaid programs that they can get on, and they can get nursing home care. But you have to be in the country legally somehow, resident agent. There are different things. So we have our basic requirements. The second is the income requirement, okay? In the state of Texas, this will be the big thing to understand, is how much income can a person have to get on? Well, we have an income limit in the state of Texas. Only 12 states still enforce the income limit. Can't make over, I think it's it changes every year. I think it's $2,233 or $2,333 right now in the state of Texas. However, you can overcome the income if you make too much. And that is, you can have a qualified income trust or a Miller trust. That will bypass the income requirement. It's kind of a dumb rule. It still exists. It was created way back in the day when if you were making over $2,000 a month, that would pay for a nursing home. So why would we be paying for your care if you could pay for it yourself? The issues that really make things complicated is, what if you have two spouses? Is the spouse income included? Well, we have the name on the check rule. Whose name's on the check isn't considered the income. Will the spouse be able to take some of the income? So the community spouse, the person who lives outside, yes, there are some amounts that are guaranteed to the community spouse so they don't have to file for divorce. We don't want to do Medicaid divorces. We've gotten rid of that. We can protect the spouse from certain things. Okay. Let's see, we can do income shifting strategies, getting the names on the check moved over. Those are becoming a lot more difficult though. Last time I tried, I wasn't able to get it done. And then we have resource requirements. Well, you can't have more, if you're an individual applying, you can't have more than $2,000 countable asset if you're trying to get into Medicaid program. So in the book, I go over the income requirements. But the problem with saying that is, it's different if you have a community spouse. If two people are married and they're both trying to get into a nursing home, all those situations create different amounts. And in the book, I go through and I have charts in here which show the old numbers in 2021 when I last updated the book, and I guess it is 2021 right now, but these were 2020 numbers, sorry. I'm losing track of what year it is. But that is resource requirement, like how many assets they have. Now, the next question then comes into what assets are included? Do we exclude assets? Yes, like a home. A home is not counted as an asset. So we have to do those type of calculations, and I go through the book and I explain those things. You have the spousal impoverishment rule. Like, we don't want to impoverish a spouse, so we give extra amount to community spouses. And in the book, I go through the Medicaid application process. Well, what's the process for applying for Medicaid? Well, what if you have too many assets, but you want to save as much as you can, or part of what you can, maybe for yourself, so you don't end up in a nursing home with no money, or you want things to go to your spouse and kids. You don't want it to go to the nursing home. So what can we do? Well, the most common strategy, the most popular one you hear all the time is this spin down strategy, okay? That means you're allowed to spend your money on certain things. For example, you can't spend your money on your church. They consider that gifting, but you can spend your money on gambling. So it's a little weird there, but that's the rule. So we allow spending of the money. You can buy certain things. And so we buy assets a lot of times that are not countable. Like, you can have one car, couple comes in, dad's going to a nursing home. I'm sitting them down and they pulled up in their 1990, core Cadillac that they purchased and that has 400,000 miles. One of the first things I'm going to do is, like, you need to go buy a new car. All right. That's one of the things that you should do with your money so we can protect some of it. Okay. You can do self-settled trusts. Okay, those are a little bit more complex strategies. We in chapter 14, I go over self-settled trusts and how they work. Gifting strategies. Okay, you can gift money away, but you're just subject to a penalty. So calculating the penalty out, how much that penalty is going to be, and whether or not it is worth it. You should always have an attorney do that for you, because you can really screw up the gifting strategy by not thinking it through correctly. There are annuity strategies. There's certain annuities that we can get that Medicaid will not consider an asset. Okay, there's certain things you can do there. Half a loaf strategy. There's a major gifting strategy that we call a half a loaf strategy, because usually when you gift, you can give half of your money to your kids, and then the other half has to go pay for your care. And the most popular strategy is the primary residence strategy, which is having a home and being able to maintain it. So we want to keep a house, try to keep a house, but there's problems with keeping a house. And we have to go through and we have to understand if that's really the best decision to make for the individual. Okay, Medicaid Estate Recovery Program. So you did all this planning, but a lot of people don't understand is a lot of people will go to some, person and be like, I'll help you do this and we'll move this around. And then all of a sudden they get a MERP lien placed upon the home and didn't understand that there were certain things they had to do to protect against that. So what do you do in those situations? Well, in those situations, we have ways to avoid the Medicaid Estate Recovery Program. There isn't a foolproof way all the time in every situation, because sometimes you do have to pay back certain amounts of money that were paid for someone's care. But in part 4, I go over MERP and how it works and the best ways to try to protect. Medicare and VA benefits. My book doesn't go extensively into VA benefits. That could be a whole other book by itself. I don't deal a lot with VA benefits. I send that usually to another institution to do that, mainly because the VA, they're very protective over who's planning and what's being done. But there's certain things that you can do. Caregiver agreements, certain things that are done in the process when applying for aid and attendance and the pension. And then Medicare, what does Medicare pay for in a long-term care situation? In the book, I had some lady post a really negative review about my book because she said, he never talked about my situation. I'm not elderly. I'm not going to a nursing home now. What should I do now? If she read the whole book, she would have got to chapter 25 and 26, and she would have realized that I talked about, well, if you're young, most people who aren't buying this book are young, but if you're young and you're buying this book and want to know, it's chapter 25 and 26. And it goes over how can I basically get free long-term care right now? And there is a way to do that. You can get most of your long-term care paid for, but you got to give up some money right now. And that's through a life insurance policy. So a cash value life insurance policy, when you pass away, has to pay out more than what you put into it. That is the requirement. Now, you can get riders on a life insurance policy that says, hey, if I end up in a nursing home, I want you to prepay, a significant portion of my life insurance policy for my care. You can add those riders on. They're allowed, and it will pay for your care. Technically, that's not free because you paid into it, but I try to explain to people, in the long run, those policies, if you fund them correctly, they will pay for not only your care, but much more. The problem with most life insurance is life insurance agents are compensated by selling you high amounts of life insurance, but not funding it correctly. The goal of life insurance is to pay the most amount of money in at the beginning with the least amount of insurance, and then let the cash value be paying the premiums for you, the investment on itself. There's some good ones to do, especially in our day and age. There's some great index policies. I would avoid variable life insurance products in these situations, but that's the last chapter of what I go over to explain is there are options out there. You just need to go out and find them, but the problem I have found is life insurance agents aren't the most ethical bunch, or more importantly, I shouldn't say ethical, they don't know how to do the right calculation to structure it properly. But this is my book that gives you basic understanding of elder law and applying for Medicaid.